But a quarterback who's going to dominate a lot of the discussion this offseason once the dust settles and we fully focus on the business side of the NFL calendar, and that's Lamar Jackson, the Ravens quarterback, 2019 MVP. This past year, missed some games due to illness, was banged up, missed some games down the stretch. Here's John Harbaugh, coach of the Ravens from yesterday, talking about the injury that Lamar Jackson sustained that caused him to miss multiple games in the all-important stretch run of the season.
And there was not a setback, it was a bone bruise. So I think early on, right away, you hope for the best for the bone bruise. Those things are really unpredictable. And there was a thought, and even Lamar, Lamar felt like he was going to be back. First week he thought he had a chance. Second week he assured me. He said, I'll be back. And he worked really hard at getting back. But it just didn't really heal. And it was in a spot where it come to understand from the medical people that there's not a great deal of blood flow down there in the low ankle, foot area where the bruise was. And it just didn't heal very quickly, and it was painful. And you could see it. He stayed in the boot longer than we thought. He was still limping even at the end of the season. Even in his boot. I saw him in his boot toward the end. So talked to him Saturday. He said it felt great. He said it was really getting better. And he felt really confident that he was going to be able to get started. He said he's starting back to work the day after the Super Bowl, and that's his time frame to get going after and be healed up by then.
That's great. Good news. He had that injury. Remember, week 14, he took the low hit, legal because he was out of the pocket, hit his ankle, injured his ankle. They acted like he wasn't going to miss much time. Then we saw that day when they were practicing on sawdust. Remember that? And I know Ravens fans, it's not sawdust. There's some Ravens fans that get really pissy, pardon me, when I joke that it looked like they were practicing on sawdust, but it did. And remember, he was limping so badly. The sawdust was a great distraction from the fact that he shouldn't have been out there on that day of practice limping around, and we never saw him again for the rest of the season. Weeks 15, 16, 17, 18, no Lamar Jackson. It was Tyler Huntley. And we just assume Lamar Jackson is going to be the quarterback for the Ravens the rest of the decade. Lamar Jackson represents himself. And if you pay any attention to this program, first of all, thank you. Second of all, what's wrong with you? Third of all, you know that my position is that every player should have a good agent. I don't advocate having a bad agent. I advocate having a good agent. And Lamar Jackson would have been well served in 2021 by having a good agent, because if he had a good agent, he would have long-term financial security. He'd be bound to the Ravens, and the Ravens, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, would be bound to him. For whatever reason, and I've heard different theories as to why a contract hasn't been done. Remember the Sunday splash report from week 1 when the Ravens were getting ready to take on the Raiders, a game that the Raiders would go on to win in overtime? They won that game, right? Yeah, they won that game in overtime. It was a good game. Great way to start the season. Shefty reported that Lamar Jackson doesn't have his contract because he's so immersed in football. He's all in football. He has no time for contract. He's all about football. And I'm not a big fan of this gratuitous myth-making that happens in sports media. Try to build people up, make them seem like even more significant and bigger and righteous than they are. They're just men. They're men. And I try to be sensitive to that, and I also try to appreciate the exploits of men. But this idea that, he's so focused on football, he has no time. Well, okay, that's all the more reason to have an agent. If I'm too busy to cut my grass, I don't let my grass grow until it's a forest. I hire somebody to cut it. If I'm too busy to paint the house, not that I would have the skills to do it or survive the experience, but anything that is on your radar screen that is unrelated to the thing that you spend so much of your time focused on, your professional exploit, whatever it is, if you don't have time to take care of other crap, there are industries out there to do it for you. That's what I learned from my dad. Not that we had the discretionary income to pay for this to be done and that to be done. A lot of things that needed to be done didn't get done. I mean, we were as lower middle class as you could be. But my dad's attitude was, and maybe it was just a genius way to never have to do stuff because he didn't want to, and he was focused on his work. But his attitude was there's guys out there who feed their families with having the ability to do this work. You know? Guy comes to fix your washing machine. That's his job. Supports his family with it. That's why he's there. He's an expert at it. TV, anything like that. So these agents are out there making a living and developing expertise, negotiating these contracts. And the good agents do a good job of it. And I know that, there's this mindset, and it's been fueled by a handful of players. Richard Sherman, Russell Okung are the two top voices in this regard. It's one thing to say, like Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner's attitude is, I decided to do my own deal, and it works for me. You decide for yourself what works for you. You got Sherman and Okung kind of pushing the idea on all players. You need to do it yourselves. Well, why? And the idea that you don't want to pay 1%, 2%, 3%. You can have 100% of a smaller pie, or you can have 97% of a big-ass pie. And when you recognize that less than 100% of a larger pie is more pie, I don't know how hard that is to process. 97% of a larger pie equals more pie for you. And yeah, somebody else gets a little bit of your pie, but you have more pie. And Lamar Jackson would be feasting on a gigantic pie right now if he had an agent last year. And I hear from time to time that the Ravens just can't get his attention. They've tried every way they can. Because, hey, the Ravens benefit from this, because where are they now? Where are they now? You know where they are now? They're in a spot where, and I'm not saying they should do this, that they will do this, but they could look at Tyler Huntley and they could say, hey, we can't get Lamar Jackson's attention. We couldn't get it in 2021. No reason to think we're going to get it in 2022. It's the last year of his contract. We're going to have to decide about the potential use of a franchise tag, because this is the option year for his contract. Drafted first round 2018, 19, 20, 21. This is the option year. Next year would be the franchise tag. We got Tyler Huntley. They got to keep him around. They got to keep him around. And I'm not saying that Tyler Huntley should replace Lamar Jackson. I'm not. I'm not even like, I'm not really saying it, but I'm saying it. I'm just saying that they don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. They don't know that they're ever going to be able to work out a contract with Lamar Jackson. They may have to tag him once, then decide, do we tag him twice? And then by the time the third tag rolls around, you're looking at a 44% bump. Over the 20% bump in the second year, it becomes unwieldy financially, and that's when he becomes a free agent. I think you got to keep Tyler Huntley around as insurance against the possibility that you're just not going to get it worked out with Lamar Jackson, and that what we saw happen to him physically last year is a sign of things to come. We saw that very physical style, fearless, courageous, 2019, 2020, and here comes 21, and he starts to break down a little bit. Is that going to continue? I think these are all legitimate concerns when you're talking about a quarterback who runs the ball aggressively, unless they are going to start transitioning him to pocket passer and not let him run the ball and not incorporate that run-based quarterback play into their offense the way they do. It's a very realistic consideration for the Ravens. So it's not in the middle of the radar screen yet. It may not be if there's no negotiations. It may just sit there. It may sit there and simmer all off season long. Nothing happening. Every time I check, anything happening with Lamar Jackson? Nothing's happening with Lamar Jackson. It may stay that way all year. They'd be wise to ensure that Tyler Huntley is around for years to come, because he may ultimately be the guy, not because they think he's better, but because he's the guy that they have a contract with, who has an agent who negotiates the contracts and provides the Ravens the certainty and security that they need to know that their guy's going to be under contract.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.